The Queensland government is looking at rent controls. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee because, well, our politicians don't learn from mistakes, they don't learn from history or other countries, and they don't realize when something has failed time and time again, perhaps you shouldn't implement it again. So here in Queensland, our Premier is considering rent caps. Queensland government looking seriously at rent caps amid soaring housing stress. Now, remember we talked about this very recently, what was happening over in Ireland. They've got a housing crisis there and private landlords are abandoning renting. They're getting out. They're getting out. And well, in this, rents are at record highs, so why are private landlords quitting the market in droves? Because what happens is government intervenes in the market, they disincentivize people providing rental properties, and these landlords, who everyone thinks is the big baddies, who are actually providing a service for people who need a house to rent, need a place to live, they just go, stuff you. I'm not getting involved anymore. I'm out. I'm out. Game over. Game over. So, and this causes problems. Here are the two reasons why it happened in Ireland. Legislation that changed every few months terrifies investors who now don't know which way is up. They're just changing the rules all the time over there. You want certainty. That's the one thing you want, certainty. And rent controls mean that no investor will buy a property that's been rented in the last 2 years at a low rent. When a property is sold in Ireland, then the rent controls passes to the new owner when the threat of a 15,000 to 30,000 euro fine if they step outside or don't understand the law. So yeah, they've screwed up the whole sector there in Ireland. I think, what was it, a tiny amount of properties that were actually available in the whole country. Ludicrous. So what's so bad about rent controls? And we'll go through this before we actually look at the video. So here you have a free market system, guys. You've got the quantity of rented properties here, and I'm just going to move what I'm drawing up here so I can look at the camera. So here's the quantity of rented properties, how many are available, and here's the rent prices. Now, of course, everyone wants to charge super high rents. They want to maximize their return on investment, unless you're trying to do, the funny negative gearing stuff. But in a real market, you want to maximize what you get. Now, there's an equilibrium where you have the demand for houses and the supply for houses reaches an equilibrium point where this is the quantity on the market and this is what people charge. Now, if you introduce a rent ceiling and say this is the maximum rent you can charge, we're putting a rent cap of such and such, suddenly the demand, which is this line here for houses, goes from this point here now to here because there's so many more people want to rent. But then people go, you know what, I'm not having a bar of this, I'm not going to make any money, or I'm going to lose too much, it's just not worth the hassle. So they exit the market, they sell, they don't even occupy the premises, or they Airbnb it or do something like that. And that means the supply drops down here. So if you lock the price in, there's a disconnect between the supply of what's provided in the market and what people want. That's the difference. Okay? And so it creates, as I said, an excess demand. There's more demand for the properties, and it reduces returns to the landlord. And what you have here is a fall in rental supply, or a shadow or black market where it all becomes dodgy. So this is the problem, everyone. This is why we don't want the government to intervene in these markets. Rent prices are a signal. They are a price signal that is, well, it's there to tell people to build more property to get more stock available. The government should make it easier for people to build and develop. That's why the policy of the Labor government in Western Australia to try and mitigate the headworks costs for developments is a step in the right direction. These are the type of ideas that we need to be looking at, not implementing rent controls when they've failed all the time. Everywhere in the world they've been implemented. What happens is investors who have their properties, they just stop giving a shit about it, they neglect it, the quality and maintenance of the property goes down. It disincentivizes investment and new builds. It just is going to create more mess than people even imagine. And you'll be worse off because of it. And this is what our own Premier here in Queensland is proposing. Now, I'm sure she understands. It's not that simple, that complex concept to appreciate the fact that implementing rent controls is not the best thing. But I suspect that she's doing it to win votes or win support, to be seen as doing something. How often do politicians just need to be seen as doing something rather than, well, even when they realize it's not the best outcome? You tell me. So, median rents rose 80% in the central Queensland city of Gladstone, 51% in Noosa and 33% on the Gold Coast over the past 5 years. Well, to replace some renting, the rent went up 33% just this year. Limits on rent increases could be on the agenda, the Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk said in a new report, as a new report shows the extent of the housing crisis. But how many councils make it painful to develop? How many get in the way of development? How many people are not in my backyard crowd that don't want development? Remember the inner city Greens councillor we have here who was ringing up Ipswich and complaining about a housing development because it was adjacent to an Indigenous camp, even though they had archaeologists discover nothing there on the site, but no, they just wanted to stop it. And his constituents will be living in multi-million-dollar houses in the inner city part of Brisbane. And they were wanting to stop things that were happening in another city that was completely beyond them. There you go. Of the 150 households under housing stress, about 100,000 would typically be eligible for social housing, a report commissioned by the Queensland Council of Social Service, QCOS, says. The figure is almost 4 times the social housing wait list of about 27,000. Average wait times for social housing are more than 2 years, and the issue is especially pronounced for families with children, the chief executive of QCOS, Amy McVeigh, says. Well, here's the thing. I would argue we don't want people in social housing. You want people to be homeowners. And rental property is a stepping stone towards that. You need to drastically increase supply. We have hundreds of thousands of people, many of whom are children, waiting for social housing for more than 2 years, she told the ABC radio on Monday. Much of the pressure stems from a skyrocketing rental market and has seen the worst inflation of any place in Australia. Median rents rose 80% in Gladstone, 51% in Noosa and 33% on the Gold Coast over the past 5 years. During that time, the proportion of private rentals considered affordable for low-income households halved from 26% to 13%. Palaszczuk confirmed rent caps will be discussed at a meeting of government, industry and advocacy groups next week. I understand that this is a big issue for families. They're constantly being faced with huge increases in rent, she told reporters on Monday. We're looking very seriously at how a rent cap can be put in place. Awesome, guys. There you go. This is what you're voting for. There have been around 8 or 9 interest rate increases. That is really adding to people's stress. Discussions are also underway to lessen the effect of the National Rent Affordability Scheme's phase-out over the next 2 years. Around 5,000 Queensland properties are part of the scheme that reduces cost for low to medium income households, and the state government stands ready to purchase those houses, the Premier said. Where the federal government is stepping out, we're stepping up. Housing stress is partly due to high levels of interstate migration, and McVeigh said international migration is predicted to return to pre-pandemic levels this year. Pressure on homelessness services is also markedly higher in the state. Homelessness in Queensland is estimated to have increased 22% in the 4 years to 2021-22, compared to the national average increase of 8%. Greens MP for South Brisbane, Amy McMahon, introduced a bill into state parliament calling for residential rents to be frozen for 2 years. This is going to reduce investment in the sector. Do they get it? I don't think they appreciate it. I don't think they appreciate it. That's honestly. After 2 years have passed, rents could increase by 2% every 24 months. This is what they're proposing. This is a joke. This is a joke. How many landlords are going to stop maintaining properties? Queensland's we're just going to copy what happened in Ireland, guys. They're just going to make it worse. If you want cheaper rent, flood the market with properties. too late, though. Queensland, I mean, I know people who vote for the Greens intentionally because they know it'll protect the value of their investment properties. How screwy is that? Really, how screwy is that? Queensland's Housing Minister, Leanne Enoch, describes the Greens' proposal as extremist at the time and said it could see a further reduction of housing supply in the private rental market. Well, it's good to see we've got some sensible people in Parliament. I mean, but it shows you how extreme the Greens are. And people vote for this. People vote for them. You know, normies that don't know bugger all about what they're voting for vote for them because they think they're the good guys. When they're going to stuff things up more than anything else. On Monday, McMahon said the Queensland Greens welcomed news the government was looking at capping rents, but broader measures were needed to fix the housing crisis. Rent increases must be capped at 2% every 2 years. Anything higher than 2% will continue to see inflation skyrocket. Property investors price gouging working families and ordinary people ending up homeless, she said. Well, let's have a talk about this. How can people get to that level to represent Australians in Parliament and not have a basic understanding of the implications of the policies that they're actually proposing? How's that possible? I guess it's just a popularity contest, isn't it? This is the problem with democracy. You don't need any level of education or understanding of things to either run for Parliament or to even vote. Oh, well, there we go. I mean, if they start messing around with this in 5 years' time, it's going to be worse than it is now. Just wait and see. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one. What would you do to solve the rental crisis here in Queensland? Check out my other channels, Heise BIM and Heise Does. And if you're a fan and want to support us, you can on YouTube or Patreon. Use our referral links, buy our pocket squares, or call us if you need an architect. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. I'll see you all in the next episode of HeiseSays. Bye for now.